My guest today is Jack O'Halloran. Jack is the co-founder and CEO at SKALE Labs, which we'll learn about today. And I believe Jack is a veteran Silicon Valley tech entrepreneur with a background in machine learning, AI technologies, and of course blockchain. So I'm sure we'll learn how all this fits together. Welcome to the show, Jack.
Hey, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here today.
Awesome. Pleasure to have you here, Jack. So just before we start to learn more about SKALE Labs, and that is spelled S-K-A-L-E, of course, we'll do what we always do at the beginning of the show, Jack. Love it if you could please introduce yourself. I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, your personal story, what you've been doing in the lead up to founding SKALE Labs.
Yeah, hey, well, I love talking blockchain. Pumped to be here today. My background is I actually started in enterprise software in Silicon Valley. Started in actually mobile security and cryptography with a company called Good Technology. That was my, foray into tech, and then started my first tech company back in 2008 and have been a tech entrepreneur ever since. My first company, in a roundabout way, eventually became the world's leading machine learning and AI platform for the life science industry. So almost every major biotech and pharmaceutical company in the world use this platform called Octana to optimize its kind of commercial execution and marketing and conversations with healthcare professionals. So learned deep tech through the ranks in Silicon Valley. And, in 2017, when I was starting my next company, I, initially was looking in at doing something in SaaS and decided, hey, I'm spending all my time reading about Web3, reading about DAOs, reading about blockchains, and decided to do it in the blockchain space. And then that was really what led me to go start SKALE Labs.
Yep, makes sense then, Jack. So I think that is probably a good segue to start to learn a little bit about what SKALE Labs is all about. So yeah, I mean, I've been having a look at the website. Looks like a very cool project indeed, and I think there's kind of a hint in the title. SKALE Labs probably has something to do with a blockchain scalability, but please, I'll let you explain it, Jack.
Yeah, so SKALE Labs is, we are the core team behind the Skale Network. The Skale Network is an open, decentralized blockchain network similar to Ethereum or Bitcoin. It's not run by any individuals. It's run on the decentralized set of servers. And what it does is it lets people run blockchain applications, and it lets you run them incredibly fast. And at zero gas fees for end users. So that's really the big aha about Skale. And I can get into all the nuances of why it's unique, what it does in particular. But at the end of the day, we and the community and people behind Skale have built something that can scale to hundreds of millions or billions of users and have zero transaction fees. And so this is for end users, and we can get into the economic model later, but that's really what we're doing and why it's unique. It's also built on Ethereum and with Ethereum. And so it uses Ethereum as a foundational layer to then go and create all of these other really fast blockchains. And so if you build an application for Ethereum, you can plug it in almost instantly to Skale and make it be very fast and very cost effective.
And so, talk to me, Jack, and in terms of why you've chosen Ethereum. I guess I'm getting the sense that you're a big proponent of Ethereum, and that is no doubt why you've chosen to build Skale on Ethereum. But why is that?
You know what? I love Ethereum. I'm a big part of the, Ethereum community and Ethereum developer ecosystem is a big part of my career and history and working in blockchain. But the reason why Skale is a part of Ethereum is one, we saw that Solidity and Ethereum Virtual Machine was going to be the preeminent force in smart contract execution. Our belief was that even though Solidity was not well known by hundreds of thousands of developers or thousands of developers even at one point, and that it has all of these limitations, that it was secure and things were built with it, and hundreds of millions and now billions of dollars are protected by Solidity and Ethereum Virtual Machine. And so we initially saw that as being a huge, we put a big bet on Ethereum, number one. Number two, Scale itself doesn't just run Ethereum in Scale. Like a lot of blockchains will run Ethereum virtual machine over in their blockchain, but they're not affiliated with Ethereum. They can just be essentially compatible. Scale actually is built in an integrated manner with Ethereum. So Scale uses the security of the Ethereum network to secure the Scale network at a foundational level. And so why we picked Ethereum, because that's, the most stable, secure place. And, Scale network uses Ethereum not for each transaction for an end user. That's what the Scale network does. It uses it for, monthly secure functions, and which is a perfect use case for Ethereum. Heavy, expensive, highly secure transactions can happen on Ethereum, and who cares if the gas fees are a little higher if that's the case. But if you want to do hundreds of thousands or millions of transactions a day as an application, you can't pay $10, $20, $100, $200 a transaction. It will never scale.
Yeah, that is exactly right, and I think that's one of the learnings from, I suppose, the recent bull cycle is that Ethereum, unfortunately, it did suffer from its popularity, really, Jack. As we saw the booms in DeFi and then NFTs. Some users effectively got priced out of those ecosystems just because smaller transactions weren't viable during peak times. So talk us through some of the use cases then for Scale. I mean, well, we know what the use cases are, but be a bit more specific. I mean, I suppose it's, the usual, everything from games to DeFi to NFTs, Web3, DAOs, anything involving some kind of a decentralized application on Ethereum is going to benefit from Scale, right, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit them all in the head. And I think, I think one interesting way to look at this is if you look at blockchains as really a supply-demand equation, and if I have a fixed supply, then my demand either needs to just wait, first come, first serve, or it needs to be able to have peak pricing so people can get what they want faster. If Ethereum didn't have surge pricing or higher gas fees when the network was overloaded, it might take days to process a transaction because everyone pays the same amount. In reality, the gas fees are fluctuating, going up and down based off the demand. The supply is fixed, and almost every other blockchain in the world has a fixed supply. Scale is one of the only blockchains in the world that has a non-fixed supply. The supply is linear, and so as more nodes join the network, more chains can be created and more supply can be brought to the network. And it's a transformational way of looking at blockchains and building blockchains. And so at the end of the day, where is that valuable? Well, hey, if we have end user applications where you have users doing, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of transactions a day, even 20 cents or $1 transaction is too much. But you need to, on the other monolithic layer ones right now, their transaction fees are anywhere usually from, at this point of the low end of the market, now maybe like 15 cents. But when the market was higher, it was $1 a transaction, 50 cents a transaction on a non-Ethereum layer one chain. And that, frankly, is just not a scalable way to scale gaming, to scale Web3, decentralized social media products, decentralized music streaming, et cetera. NFT marketplaces, NFT enabled consumer products. So none of these high volume products will work. Now, very heavy DeFi where you're trading hundreds of thousands of dollars, yet people don't care if you have to pay $100 or $1,000 a transaction. But the normal market, it does. And like you said, a lot of people got priced out.
Yeah, that is exactly right. Well, talk to us then, Jack, in terms of, I suppose, where you guys are at SKALE Labs in terms of, you develop a roadmap, really. So, when was the origin for SKALE Labs? When did you guys first kick off? And, what is the state of the network now? Where are you at, and where are you going?
Yeah, so we started this in 2017, and really it started with an idea in around applications. And so I had ideas for applications I wanted to launch that brought more power to end users, and apply these Web3 principles around profit distribution, profit sharing. And Stan Kladko, my co-founder and our CTO, had a similar story. He had four different ideas. And Stan has a PhD in physics from Max Planck Institute. He was a physics researcher at Stanford, and also was doing advanced computer science studies at Stanford, and ended up getting into cryptography at Stanford, and was part of a cryptography startup called Ingrid Networks that N.O.D.E started back in 2000. And Stan, is really a world-class, world-renowned cryptographer. And and I would say his strength is not coming up with new cryptography, but learning it and then being able to apply computer science principles to build and build applications. And both of us were just running into this wall of capacity. But Stan had figured out this model to say, hey, well, if I solve my own problem, then I could launch all these apps. And then when I met him, he had ideas to launch these apps because he could scale them. I had ideas for apps, but I couldn't scale them. And our brains came together and we said, hey, why don't we help other people who have application ideas and help them solve the same problem we have? And those are usually where good ideas come from, is when you're solving your own issue. And then it also helps when you have the new bringing that service layer to people fit more within our background than building direct applications as well.
Yeah, very good, Jack. And maybe let's talk specifically about some of the different, I suppose, parts of the Scale ecosystem. So I can see there's a DAO. There's something called the N.O.D.E Foundation, the Network of Decentralized Economics, and then you've got some specific applications, such as, I guess, like you've got your own NFT marketplace. I'm not even sure if this is your own, but there's one called Curate, which I can see, which uses Scale. And then there's NFT Trade and Solidaria. So maybe just, I know I'm running through these quite quickly, but let's just touch on all of them. So we'll begin with the DAO. What's involved there, Jack?
Yeah, so one, they're actually the overarching DAO to all of these, I would say, would be the Scale DAO. So Scale itself, so let's say, the price per chain, people say, hey, these are too expensive. Well, there could be an on-chain vote, and then the DAO goes and updates these contracts on the smart contracts on the Ethereum mainnet, and it will change the price of a chain. Or, let's say validators who are running servers say, I want to be paid more. Well, there's a vote within the Scale DAO, then it actually implements a change over on the Scale side. And so Scale itself is a DAO. Now, the N.O.D.E Foundation is really just a foundation structure that helped issue the token. It doesn't have any control over the network. It's just a foundational entity that services the goals and the nonprofit initiatives of the Scale Network, which is community owned. Now, underneath that, there are now other DAOs being created, other structures, other groups of people that are combining forces, and two major ones are combining around something called Scale Hubs. So if you look at Scale, like, let's take a step back. You think about Scale as not one blockchain, but many, many, many blockchains. Well, that could be confusing on one hand, because you're looking at, like, what do you connect to? How does liquidity flow through the network? And we've got all this capacity, but there's not coordination. Well, what adds coordination and liquidity optimization are marketplaces. And in particular, there's two of them. One is a token liquidity marketplace chain, and that's called it's called the Europa Hub, and it's run by the Europa DAO. Many different entities, none of them are the SKALE Labs team, run that DAO. And what it is there's an exchange called Ruby Exchange, ruby.exchange.
Yep.
Zero fee trading, incredibly fast, and just an amazing user experience using Ruby. And so I highly recommend anyone listening to go. You'll actually be on the Europa Chain. It's a blockchain that is on the Scale Network, and so you can almost think of it as has this shared foundation with all the other chains. But at the surface, it's its own blockchain, and so it has more capacity than other major layer one chains, which people probably hold tokens for and know, and this Europa chain does. And so you can interact with that today. There's also a gaming chain that's connected. It's called the Brawl chain, and Block Brawlers is one of the games on there. And you can go to blockbrawlers.com and play Block Brawlers today. Now there's another hub called Calypso Hub, and the cool thing about Calypso is that this is an NFT marketplace hub, and so it's a chain that has all of these different NFT marketplaces. And the fun thing about Calypso and Calypso as well as Europa is they're both moons. And so Calypso is a moon of Saturn, and Europa is a moon of Jupiter. And these are names that the community has picked on their own and other partners, all around this kind of scale verse. It's like this universe of blockchains, and there's it's called the scale verse, and the scale community calls themselves the Scalians. So there's this outer space theme happening. So anyways, that's just a little, I'll stop there, but
yeah, no, that actually that makes sense, Jack, and I suppose that explains why your website is scale.space. And if you go to your website, the first thing you see is these. Yeah, it's like it's a really cool space scene. Really, these kind of abstract. They're almost like I don't know, like they look like plastering 3D models of moons and planets, and there are various rockets and satellites flying around, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's a kind of futuristic style 3D graphics, that look almost claymation like.
Yes.
If you're listening, go to scale.space, SKALE.space.
Yeah, love it. It's really well done. And what about the N.O.D.E Foundation, a non-profit entity based in Liechtenstein, I believe, Jack?
Yeah, so that's the nonprofit structure that was the issuer of the token. They maintain, hey, if a token's issued and there's people behind it, you do need to have compliant entities. And if there's investment coming from individuals or people or public sale, there needs to be an entity that is enforcing governmental laws around KYC AML and securities rules, securities compliance. And blockchains are, not securities, but they still need to make sure they are not, if that's the case, well, they have to actually be a utility token and operate in a manner and launch in a manner that is compliant with the, best in class instructions or guidance. And so the N.O.D.E Foundation was the entity, or is the entity, that helped launch the token and helps maintain, control of the treasury and compliance from the perspective of where, blockchains are these almost like community-owned organisms. They're not businesses, they're not securities, they're not financial assets, they're not pure technology assets. They're these kind of like living, breathing things in the technical realm. But they do need to have these conduits to the traditional world, and foundation structures like the N.O.D.E Foundation, or like, for example, the Ethereum Foundation, what it does for Ethereum, they help these kind of intangible structures connect to modern banking worlds and governmental compliance.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, as we continue with this part of the podcast, Jack, be interested, firstly, just to get some thoughts from you on how you think about the current state of the market. And then I want to talk about your thoughts on decentralization as well, right? Because I know you've written on this topic, and but let's do the market first. One of the cliches that people talk about is bear markets are for builders. So perhaps that's as good a place as any to start. But yeah, what do you see happening in the market? How do you think about it going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's one of the most exciting times, and because it's really where you win if you're a builder. When the market's going up like crazy, every average team who's really good at marketing, who knows how to hire right marketing agencies and you just see all of these projects just shoot up who frankly are, don't have any foundational or structure, or don't have, a deep technical core with product market fit. And, they usually wash out during these times. And the projects that do really well are the ones that during the down market position successfully. They brought on the right partners, they brought on the right, applications, they built the right product, and they worked, they got things where they needed to be for when the market turned around, they had the right position. And so, it is kind of cliche, but it's real. It's these down markets are when you build. But I will say the difference between this market cycle and the last one, having gone through that with Scale as well, this is our second kind of down part of the cycle that we've gone through. Was the last one, everyone was saying, well, is crypto going to be around? I'm holding this ETH and it's only $90 now. Should I just sell it all? Is it going to go to zero? Should I just sell this Bitcoin? Is it going to go to, $500 again? And now that's not the narrative. People are saying, well, when should I buy? Okay, I believe in this. This is definitely an integral part of, the future and the way tech works. When's the right time to get back in the market? So it's a different dynamic I'm hearing. There's also maybe greater macro negative sentiment. People don't know what's going to happen at a macroeconomic level. But in terms of pure crypto, I think there's a lot more confidence in, at least the future than there was the last time. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too.
No, I think that's really well said, Jack. I very much agree. So there's much less, I suppose, doom and gloom sentiment that would suggest crypto is never coming back. That is well behind us. We've just got there's enough momentum and people in the market doing interesting things that crypto has become certainly an industry into itself. Certainly still has its problems, and it definitely has its outsider critiques, if you like, as well. And a lot of those are valid, unfortunately, as we've seen. I think just this cycle. A lot of leverage in the system, Jack, and it's again. I'm sorry to keep using these cliches, but this one has just come to mind, and it perfectly describes the kind of the leverage situation. When the tide goes out, you get to see who's swimming naked, and unfortunately, Jack, just some of these big boys, a lot of them were all just interconnected to each other through some real stupidity, I think.
That's really well said. That's a new, I've not heard that one, but it's a good, there's some people, I guess, that get caught with their drawers down, as they say.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people made business decisions thinking, you know what, Bitcoin will never be below 20,000 again. And if it is, we're toast. And then it happened. And then, there's now people are having to deal with that reality. So that's, thankfully, I think, on the project side and the builder side, Scale is a liquid token that's a utility token utilized within the network, but it is, we have, obviously, feel the impact there, but we're kind of hidden from the other piece because, hey, as a core team, we've got multiple years of funding. We keep operating. Our partners are well funded. A lot of venture capital already came into the space or was already raised through LPs. So, there's a little bit of a bifurcation other than obviously token impact. But, hey, we're here building, but then you look at the bigger, these bigger macroeconomic players who had massive leverage and we're kind of got ahead of their skis. They're unfortunately having big layoffs and then there's these cascading impacts through the entire market.
Yeah, exactly right. I said we'd talk about decentralization, Jack, and the only reason I mention this is because just in the course of doing a little bit of research and preparation before talking to you, I see that you've written one or two I would say they're essays really, or blog posts, whatever you want to call them, yourself, like maybe from a few years ago. You're obviously deep in the Ethereum ecosystem, and so I suppose I'd just love to get your thoughts on, how you think about decentralization and really where Ethereum is at, because obviously super interesting time for Ethereum as the merge or the move to proof of stake, however you want to describe it. It's been a little bit of a long and painful process. It's still a long and painful process. How do you think about this switch to proof of stake for Ethereum? I'm sure you think it's a good thing, and does that represent true decentralization, which of course is one of the core tenets of blockchain?
I mean, it's kind of funny because from just an environmental perspective, yes, I'm very, very happy Ethereum's moving to proof of stake. I think we'll be burning a lot less energy. Just, proof of stake is far more energy efficient than proof of work. So it's a net positive. I get a little concerned because proof of stake networks are more complicated. There's a lot more happening technically. There's more things that can break. And the people working on that are, there's lots of different teams working on the merge, as they say. And my fear is just, we have this thing that works and it's pretty simple, even though it's very not energy effective. We're just adding more complexity, and we'll probably have some issues, just like every proof of stake network has had some issues and some hiccups, and, having to do like bug fixes and, hot fixes and patch updates to the network. So hopefully that all goes well. I'm sure there'll be some hiccups, but I think it'll go well overall. Now, centralization, it's really interesting because in the proof of work world, I think it's something like 4 or 5 mining pools control all of Ethereum and could collude. But now in this proof of stake Ethereum world, the stake is actually highly centralized around these staking pools. And so it brings up new questions as to, well, how is Ethereum now even more centralized? And so you look at something like Scale, that there are 160 nodes, there are 48 different validator orgs, there are thousands and thousands of people that are staking in the network, but there's no staking pools. And then these chains are created that all kind of share security, and a subcomponent of each node will be allocated to a chain. But you might have 16 different validators on a chain. And you might say, well, hey, that's not good. It's only 16 validators. But if you look at Ethereum proof of stake, it's unfortunately pretty centralized, and it's causing some issues right now in the community. And so I hope it gets fixed, but it's because of these staking pools.
Yeah, interesting thoughts, Jack. And from your perspective, then, I always like to, as a true Ethereum person, is what I'm trying to say, Jack. What are your thoughts on Bitcoin?
I'm still, I'm a big fan of Bitcoin. I've always appreciated Bitcoin. I feel like the people who are, Maximus, like, you can only be Bitcoin or only Ethereum. Like, I come from the enterprise software world. And so if someone was like, I'll only use Salesforce, or I'll only use Oracle, or only, it's like, well, guess what? These are just software companies, and they serve different purposes, right? And, when you look at blockchain and crypto and crypto economics and crypto tokens, like, they all there's not one thing that just can control everything, right? Or that can do everything or serve every need. And so I just see them as this whole pool of, values. And I look at Bitcoin, I think, it's a phenomenal store of value. I don't ever plan on buying a pizza again with Bitcoin, like you could do back in 2013 in San Francisco, or take a taxi. You could take a yellow cab and pay for it in 2014 in San Francisco and pay with Bitcoin. And, I've, been, never have sold any of my Bitcoin. It's just kind of an amazing store of value. But if you look at USDC on, running on a Scale chain, or USDP on a Scale chain, well, great. That's, backed up to the US dollar. And I'm going to spend that to, in to buy a pizza in a through a decentralized application, or buy a ride through a decentralized application. It makes a lot more sense than buying something like Bitcoin, which is almost like a digital gold. That's my 2 cents. So
Yeah, yeah,
two Satoshis.
yeah, I love it. I'm with you there, Jack. Yeah, sometimes it's as simple as yes, different platforms, different protocols, different blockchains for different use cases, and the further you get out on the I guess the risk curve, the more experimental and fun you can have. But that's why you don't store all of your value out on those riskier platforms, riskier assets. Should also, just as let's finish off this part of the podcast, we haven't really talked about Web3 and NFTs, which I know is very much in your wheelhouse, and of course a core value for the Scale proposition as well. So yeah, just anything you want to share in terms of how Scale Labs kind of thinks about the use cases for things like NFTs and the kind of marketplaces you're enabling. Be as speculative as you want, Jack. You know, always enjoy that. So yeah, what do you see in kind of Web3 and NFTs, metaverse as it relates to Scale?
Yeah. So one, my belief is that DeFi kind of pulled crypto out of the last bear market. Yep. And it wasn't because people were like, oh, DeFi is cool, let me gamble and make a bunch of money on DeFi. It was people were using DeFi. DeFi were just doing things. And if anyone has used Compound or Aave, you can lend, without any centralized actors that are going to, default. It's like automated liquidations. And so it's just a phenomenal way. It's not an algorithmic stablecoin. It's a very safe, secure mechanism. And, that's amazing. And if you look at the, all these other products that launched, it just captured the imagination and attention of people because it was real. And so my feeling is the next wave will be Web3. Web3 is not taken off yet because one, I think we needed still greater awareness. People's first real touch to that was like, oh, I own an NFT and it's a cool thing. And it's part of my online identity and I want to trade it. I want to use it to get into special groups on Discord and special communities, but it's really just the surface. And the other thing is the experience people have with wallets and fiat on-ramps and off-ramps and user experience, transaction fees, execution times and block times have all just been really bad. And despite all the advantages of Web3, people haven't shifted from Web2 because the UX sucks. And I finally think we're at this time, as everything's coming together, where over the next year, you're going to start seeing, I think we're going to have Web3 applications that have, as many users as top Web2 applications. And when that happens and they've integrated NFTs and, profit sharing is flowing through these communities and, governance, power and authority is being, decentralized, not in a boardroom, but through the users and the workers, then, I think it's going to be the next piece that pulls us into this next, crazy crypto growth stage. And so Scale is built to support that. I mean, it's zero cost NFT minting, zero, cost smart contracts and transfers. And, the reality is they're still paid for, but it's paid in advance. And people buy Scale tokens. They stake them in advance and they stake them to pay for the chain, and you pay for a year in advance. And it's a far more economically feasible model. And the end user doesn't have to pay. You don't punish the user for using the product. Like Web2 companies know that they don't charge you for use. They try to incentivize your use. They don't disincentivize your use. And so Scale enables that. So Scale plus a lot of amazing things happening on the wallet side are all coming together at the right time. And I am incredibly excited. We had DeFi summer of 2019, 20 or the 2020 DeFi summer.
Yeah.
And we're going to have, I think, a similar things coming together here for Web3. I think Web3 there's going to be a Web3 summer next year. It might even be before summer hits, but there's just so much happening. There's so many builders working in that space.
I love it. All right, let's go to a very quick break. Jack, and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We'll run you through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. Back in 1 second.
For crypto indices and benchmarking, Brave New Coin's powerful indexing engine can calculate high-frequency intraday and end-of-day indices for a wide range of index products. Brave New Coin's custom indices team delivers experienced consultancy, premium data, and trusted calculation. Contact BNC today to find out more.
All right, we are back, and I'm with Jack O'Halloran. Jack, of course, is the co-founder and CEO at SKALE Labs. Been interested to talk everything from DeFi to NFTs to Ethereum to blockchain scaling with you today, Jack. But I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid-fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, Jack. I'm just going to run some questions at you. No right or wrong way to do this. Just want quick, snappy answers, hot take style. Question one, we kind of discussed this. I guess it's a bit of a funny one, but where would you say you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
Yeah, I'm a very boring in the middle. I like both. So unfortunately, people aren't going to get a really good answer, but it's the right answer. You should hold Bitcoin, and you should be participating in Web3 networks. That's the right stance.
I think I agree. Sometimes it is as simple as that. All right. Well, Jack, what would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
My
firmest, yeah. What is your crypto opinion that you have the most conviction in, really?
Yeah, I believe crypto it's happening slower than we think it will, and then it will happen faster and more dramatically. I think young people do not want to use centralized products. Crypto is going from we're turning from vitamins into painkillers. And if anyone has it's an old enterprise software adage. It's like, you want to sell painkillers, not vitamins. People spend far less money on vitamins than they do, high-end medicine. So, and I think Web3 is going through that evolution, and it's because of, there's a societal acceptance and knowledge of what Web3 can do. And this younger population has far greater concerns with privacy and control over systems than the people 2 or 3 generations older than them do.
Yeah, well, if we're framing that as slowly, then suddenly it kind of reminds me of a quote, Jack, by Bill Gates, who famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So if that's the context, Jack, whatever you like, Web3, NFTs, Ethereum, SKALE Labs, what does it all look like in 10 years' time?
Yeah, I think we will be living in a world of decentralized applications. Our money that we use, maybe not when we're buying our homes and our mortgages and our your deep bank accounts, but for the most part, we're going to be operating and living on a payment rails of cryptocurrency. It's far more efficient, far more transparent, easier to implement compliance standards. Applications have a dramatically more power to build network effects, grow user bases, give power back to users, and the owners and controllers of networks or of products will be the users and the workers. So I think that's the future. And in 10 years, like you said, it's I do think we are the most of us are overestimating the short term and underestimating the long term. So 10 years is going to be pretty exciting.
Yes, indeed. And well, the flip side of that, of course, Jack, is a quote by William Gibson, who famously said that the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people just aren't really aware of it?
Yeah, I would just say the basic mechanics of not many people have interacted with Compound and taken USDC and loaned it and then received return higher than their bank account. Not many people have I have to send a friend money and instead of wiring money, if it's too big of a transaction to use Venmo or something, it's way easier to just send someone ETH or USDC or Scale tokens or whatever. I think most people are interacting with Web3 through exchanges and speculating on value. If you look at the metrics globally, there's obviously many people listening here today who probably are interacting because they're forward thinking and listening to podcasts. But the majority of us don't even recognize that the future is we can already interact with it, even just on simple things like a savings account.
Yep, nicely said, Jack. All right, let's finish this off. Finally, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, TV show, or universe?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Maybe that's really tough. Because I'm a big sci-fi reader, and that's kind of all I read anymore. I mean, Dune is a classic. Dune might be one of my favorites. I've got a big list here. I love the Foundation series too.
Yes.
And not the TV show. Read the books; they're way better.
Yeah, that's a hot tip there, right there, Jack. Thank you. All right. Hey, this has been fun, Jack. I've enjoyed talking to you. Nothing else to say except hand the metaphorical microphone back to your good self. Please tell the listeners where they can find you on Twitter or wherever else you like to hang out online. And, if they're intrigued by what you guys are building at SKALE Labs, how can people utilize your services? How can they get involved? What should they do? Where should they go?
Yeah, so you can find me at Jack O'Halloran, my Twitter handle. You can go to this Skale website, scale.space, and get access to the Telegram group, the Discord community, and other online groups, GitHub if you're a developer and you'd like to come and check out the code. It's all open source. But please get in touch. Skale, I would say, is one of the fastest growing communities and just a phenomenal group of engaged people. And you'll come meet the Scalians. They're a great group. We'd love to have you. And hey, and lastly, I just want to say thank you. And I appreciate all of you. You've got all like the quotes and the analogies locked in. Like what I'm reaching for, you had it each time. It was fun talking to you.
Awesome. All right. I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Jack. All the best and bye for now.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
All right, there you go. That was Jack from SKALE Labs. Jack was cool. I like Jack. Very smart guy, happy, cheerful guy. Always good. Always good to talk to positive, knowledgeable builders, particularly in the depths of the bear market. SKALE Labs. What can I say? It looks really interesting, actually. So, just go to scale.space and if you're a Web3 user at all, then I'm sure you'll be intrigued indeed. All right, we reached the end of another show. Thanks for listening here at the end of the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the Crypto Conversation so you know when each new weekly episode drops. And I mean, what do you mean weekly? We have 3 episodes a week, of course. So it's always busy here at the Crypto Conversation. But that is the end of the show. Thanks for listening, team. We're out of here. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin. See ya.